You're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Hi everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. On today's episode of the podcast, we're reviewing match number 24 of the ICC Cricket World Cup for 2023 between Australia and the Netherlands. For Australia, they've won 3 games on the trot, beating Sri Lanka, beating Pakistan, and now beating the Netherlands to kickstart and get back into this World Cup campaign and cemented their spot in the top 4 for now in terms of qualifying for the semi-finals. They're starting to hit their straps. It was a pretty dominant performance by the Australian team in a very dominant, convincing victory over the Dutch. Glenn Maxwell, record-breaking Cricket World Cup century. David Warner, back-to-back centuries. Smith and Labuschagne in the runs. The bowlers were superb. Zampa was excellent again. Mitchell Marsh, Cummins, Stark, all did their role in this brilliant win for Australia. For the Netherlands, it was disappointing. A record-breaking defeat. The biggest ever defeat in a Cricket World Cup in history. Also a tough day out for the Dutch as well. But they've done some good things in this World Cup, winning against South Africa. This is a little bit of a setback against Australia, but for them it's important to look at this, learn from it, and progress and move forward. So we've got plenty to talk about in this episode today, reviewing this match from Australia and the Netherlands. Lots to talk about, how both teams went about it, where the game was won and lost. So that's going to provide us with many discussion points in this episode of the podcast today. Let's have a look at the match summary from match number 24 of the ICC Cricket World Cup for 2023 between Australia and the Netherlands from the Arun Jaitley Stadium. Australia batted first. They made 9 for 399 from their 50 overs. Glenn Maxwell top scored with 106, and Logan van Beek took 4 wickets for the Netherlands. The Netherlands, they needed to chase down 400 runs to win. They were bowled out for 90 in 21 overs. Vikram Jeet Singh top scored with 25, and Adam Zampa took 4 wickets for Australia. Australia won by 309 runs, and Glenn Maxwell was named Player of the Match. What were the key moments and key factors from match number 24 of the ICC Cricket World Cup for 2023 between Australia and the Netherlands? The partnerships of 132 for the second wicket between Warner and Smith, 84 for the third wicket between Warner and Labuschagne, and 103 for the 7th wicket between Maxwell and Cummins were key partnerships for Australia, reaching 9 for 399. Also, Glenn Maxwell's innings of 106 of 44 balls was key for Australia. Australia were 5 for 267 when David Warner was out, and Australia was struggling to get a total well over 350. But Maxwell's innings accelerated Australia to that dominant total of 9 for 399. Those were the key moments and key factors from match number 24 of the ICC Cricket World Cup for 2023 between Australia and the Netherlands from the Arun Jaitley Stadium. Let's talk about how both Australia and the Netherlands performed in match number 24 of this ICC Cricket World Cup for 2023 at the Arun Jaitley Stadium. Let's talk about Australia's performance with both bat and ball. Let's talk about the Australian batters and how they performed in this match against the Netherlands. Mitchell Marsh, 9, Warner, 104, Smith, 71, Labuschagne, 62, Inglis, 14, Maxwell, 106, and Green, 8. And that's how the Australian batters went about their performance and business in this match against the Netherlands. It was a almost complete batting performance from Australia with the bat. Posting 9 for 399 was a very dominant total. It was a pretty good effort to reach that score on a pretty good pitch in Delhi. Probably their best performance so far with the bat, obviously following the good performance with the bat against Pakistan. The batting was good. Positive intent, good intent. Did the basics well with the bat. Built partnerships. Ran well between the wickets. Very smart about how they went about things with their batting, which is good to see from Australia. Obviously, Glenn Maxwell was the standout. Let's talk about his innings. 106 of 44 balls was just magnificent to watch from Glenn Maxwell. Definitely redeemed himself after the disappointment in the last game against Pakistan, where he got out for a golden duck, skied a ball, and got out caught. But he definitely made amends in this game against the Netherlands. It was a top quality innings from Maxwell. We expect this from Glenn Maxwell. He's got the capabilities and the talent and the skills to come out and play in innings like this. And he's done it many times before, but I think where people are a bit disappointed with Maxwell is that inconsistency sometimes where he doesn't quite fire. But he definitely arrived in this World Cup in this game against the Dutch. It was, some of the shots he played, those reverse sweeps or laps, however you'd like to call it, over third man and fine leg was superb to watch. He just picked apart the Netherlands bowlers, and the Dutch bowlers couldn't really, didn't have any answers to try and stop him. And really, all bowling sides, it doesn't matter if you're from the Netherlands bowling or, other teams in world cricket, it's very hard to stop Glenn Maxwell when he's in this sort of form. And he showed it in this game against the Dutch. A few records were broken as well. Obviously, Glenn Maxwell, this century, it is the fastest World Cup century. 40 balls, he brought up the century. And obviously, he went past the record that was already set in this World Cup by Aiden Markram, which was against Sri Lanka, and he scored it in 49 balls. And Glenn Maxwell smashed it easily in the end, really. So that's one record that Glenn Maxwell got. The other record was the fastest ODI century by an Australian. And obviously Glenn Maxwell surpassed his own record. The previous record was held by Glenn Maxwell. That was 51 balls. And that was against Sri Lanka in the 2015 World Cup. And that was at the SCG in that World Cup. So Glenn Maxwell's beating his own Australian record. Number of records that Glenn Maxwell has picked up in this innings. But it was a very good innings. It's good to see, good signs for Australia that Glenn Maxwell is firing, scoring runs. And for him, Australia were not in trouble. There was a little bit of a batting collapse with the middle order a little bit. They lost a few wickets. And at one stage, it looked like they weren't going to get a score of over 350. So it's good that Glenn Maxwell came in, finished off the innings and got the job done. So that's good signs for Australia that he's in form now. Scoring runs, got his confidence sky high. And he's looking pretty dangerous. And we saw that in this innings here. So good signs for Australia. Glenn Maxwell, to finish off on him, pretty good innings, was outstanding. Also, David Warner batted pretty well, back-to-back centuries for him. Good signs for Australia that he's in the runs in this World Cup, which is very important, especially at the top of the order. So he batted well again. Also, Steve Smith will be delighted with his innings. 71 he made. He'll be delighted that he's in the runs again. That's good for Australia. Good signs again. Marnus Labuschagne also in the runs. 62 he made. Also had a good partnership with David Warner. So I think Australia will be very pleased that Warner, Smith, Labuschagne are scoring runs now. Also, Glenn Maxwell's in the runs. Mitchell Marsh has got a century. He looks in ominous touch. And also, you've got Travis Head to come back into the side. And he's going to be pretty handy as well. So, Australia, things are just clicking at the moment with the batting. Starting to get the basics right and starting to get the batting down pat. So, besides from that, it was a pretty good batting performance again. Just the one area that Australia will have to look at going into the next game against the New Zealand team is the batting collapse again in the middle order. There was a little bit of a batting collapse towards the back end of the innings. There were 4 for 266, then that was 5 for 267, then 6 for 290. Struggled at one stage to get 350 plus. If it wasn't for Glenn Maxwell's innings, Australia would have got a total of over 300, but they would have got a total of maybe 320, maybe 330. But with Glenn Maxwell, they got up to nearly 400. So that's just something for Australia to look at in terms of the batting, the middle order again, just not losing those wickets back to back. So that's something that they need to look at going into the game against New Zealand. But overall, a pretty good batting performance. Let's talk about their bowling and talk about how the Australian bowlers went about their business in this match against the Netherlands. 2 wickets for Marsh, a wicket for Cummins, Stark and Hazelwood, and 4 wickets for Adam Zampa. And that's how the Australian bowlers performed in this match against the Netherlands. Pretty dominant bowling performance, you had to say. I think it's probably Australia's best bowling performance of this World Cup thus far. Obviously, bowling the Netherlands out for 90 is an indication that they bowled well. Everyone played their role. Everyone took wickets, participated. Also, Australia took wickets in the power play, which they've struggled in this World Cup. They haven't been able to pick up wickets in the first 10 overs. They did that in this game against the Netherlands, which was good. That's good going forward. Adam Zampa was good again, leading from the front, 4 wickets for 8. He's definitely got his confidence back. Also, the leading wicket taker of this World Cup now. He's up there in the top 2 with Mitchell Satner, a fellow spinner as well. And both of them will come against each other, obviously, in the next game when Australia play New Zealand. So it's good to see Adam Zampa, the last 3 games, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and now the Netherlands, all those games he's taken 4 wickets. He's bowled well, he's got the confidence back, and that's a good sign for Australia. Obviously, being the sole spinner, the specialist spinner, it's good to see him getting wickets and in form. Stark, Cummins, Hazelwood, Mitchell Marsh bowled well in tandem and in support of Zampa. So the bowling was pretty good from Australia. Was pretty good. Nothing much to add on to it, really. When you bowl a side out for 90, you must have had a good day at the office. And that's what they did. And the Dutch, they just couldn't handle that pressure. So pretty good from Australia in terms of their bowling. There's still a lot of areas to work on with the bowling and with the batting. But it's just starting to come together for Australia now as we approach the back end of the tournament. So to finish up about the Australian bowling, pretty good. Everyone's taking wickets. Everyone looks like coming back to some sort of their best and just starting to get their rhythm and their fluency back in their bowling, which is good to see. But overall, it was a pretty dominant bowling display. Let's talk about the Netherlands and their performance in this World Cup match against Australia and talk about how they went about things with the bat and with the ball. Let's talk about their batting first of all, and how the Netherlands batters went about things in this match against Australia. Singh, 25, O'Dowd, 6, Ackerman, 10, Engelbrecht, 11, Delida, 4, Edwards, 12 not out, Nitsanamaru, 14. And that's how the Netherlands batters went about things in this match against Australia. Their batting, the Netherlands, bowled out for 90, was a pretty poor batting performance. Batting collapse. They lost wickets at regular intervals. Chasing 400 for them was obviously going to be a tough ask. But at least for the Netherlands, even though they weren't going to chase down the runs, I think the important thing for them and their batters was just to score some runs, get into a bit of touch. Their top order has struggled in this World Cup. They've had early batting collapses in the games against South Africa and the last game against Sri Lanka. They lost 5 or more wickets early. And that's what happened again to Australia in this match. So it was an opportunity for the top order, which hasn't been firing, to score some runs for the Dutch and just look at that sort of thing with their batting. Realistically, yeah, we're probably not going to get the 400 runs, but for our top order and for our other batters, it's an opportunity to go out and just score some runs and just bat the 50 overs and see where we end up. But unfortunately, they couldn't do that. The Australian bowlers were on song. They couldn't handle the pressure, and they just collapsed in a big heap. Nothing more to say, really. It was just a typical batting collapse, which you see all the time in cricket. You know, once 1 or 2 wickets fall, then the rest go. And that's what happened with the Dutch. So nothing much to add on to their batting. It was pretty poor and a typical batting collapse. Let's talk about their bowlers and how they performed in this match. No wickets for Singh, Ackerman, Van der Merwe and Van Meekrum. 2 wickets for De Leader, 4 wickets for Van Beek, and a wicket for Dutt. That's how the Netherlands bowlers performed in this match against Australia. Their bowling was a bit of a mixed bag, the Dutch. They did well to take 9 wickets, nearly bowled Australia out, which was a good achievement. They struggled to maintain pressure with the ball at times, especially when Maxwell was going off. They did well towards the back end of the Australian innings. They did well to take wickets late. They picked up wickets towards the back end of the Australian innings to try and slow Australia down. Obviously, Australia were going to get a total of 300 plus, but at one stage, they weren't looking like getting a total of 350. So the Dutch bowlers did well to peg Australia back and take wickets. But when Glenn Maxwell came in and did what he did, they just sort of crumbled under the pressure, didn't quite execute their skills, and Maxwell just pretty much took them downtown, really, and they weren't able to stop the flow of runs. And they were a bit under pressure there, really, which is disappointing on their point of view. Pretty disappointing for the Dutch in terms of their bowling. I thought they did well to take wickets, and obviously they needed to bowl Australia out to have any chance of chasing some sort of total, but that didn't eventuate, and obviously Glenn Maxwell just tore them apart, as I mentioned. Besides their bowling, their fielding was pretty good. I think the Dutch, their fielding in this World Cup has been excellent. It's been exceptional. It's been a very good fielding performance from them in this whole entire World Cup. They've caught well. They've fielded well. There was a run out in this innings. Engelbrecht got rid of Cameron Green run out. And it just shows how good they are in the field. They really pay attention to detail, which you need to do. So that was good to see from the Dutch. Their fielding was good. Their bowling was a bit inconsistent at times. But I think it's a good experience for their bowlers to experience that, bowling against Australia's best batters that they've had in their history. Also, for one bowler in particular, it wasn't a great night for Baz de Leader. 2 for 115 from his 10. It's the most expensive figures in one-day internationals. Obviously, Adam Zampa and Mick Lewis had the record, none for 113. So I think Adam Zampa and Mick Lewis, both from Australia, will be very delighted that they don't have that record anymore, and Baz de Leader has the record. But it's not something that you want to be proud of. But it was a tough night for Baz de Leader, nonetheless. But, he did well to pick up 2 wickets. Obviously, Van Beek was probably their best bowler, taking 4 wickets, obviously. So he did well to do that. But just to finish off about the Netherlands and their bowling, pretty patchy, and they'll be disappointed. But they should be happy about their fielding because it was pretty good. So for the Dutch, a bit of a mixed bag with both the batting and with the bowling in this game against Australia. Let's preview Australia's and the Netherlands' next matches in this ICC Cricket World Cup for 2023, talk about their potential 11s, talk about the challenges and what they need to do to try and win their next game of this World Cup. First of all, we'll start with Australia. Their next game is against New Zealand, and that will be in Dharamshala at the HPCA Stadium. That will be on Saturday, the 28th of October. Should be a good game. There's always a good game between Australia and New Zealand, the Trans-Tasman rivalry, which has been going on for many years now. Australia have a pretty good record against New Zealand in ODIs and especially in Cricket World Cups. So for Australia and New Zealand, it's going to be a good game. Obviously, New Zealand coming off a loss against India, they'll be hoping to bounce back. But they know that Australia will be a very tough game indeed. And for Australia, looking to win 4 in a row, looking to cement their top 4 position with a win against New Zealand. If they do that, then you would think they're pretty much qualified for the semi-finals. But there's still a lot of cricket to be played. But Australia should be confident. They have a good record against New Zealand in ODIs and especially in Cricket World Cups over the years. In terms of the areas that Australia need to focus on, pretty much just keep doing the basics with the bat, ball, and in the field. I think if they keep doing what they've been doing in the last 3 games against Sri Lanka and Pakistan and the Netherlands, which have seen victories, if they keep doing the same thing against New Zealand, I think they'll be on track for another win. So very important to maintain the consistency. In terms of the potential 11 that they may select, Travis Head may come back. He may come back and open the batting. Therefore, someone will have to miss out, probably most likely Marnus Labuschagne. So I think the only change that Australia will make is probably Travis Head comes in for Marnus Labuschagne. That's the obvious choice. Travis Head comes back to open the batting. And I think that could be the change that Australia will make. So their potential 11 could be, against New Zealand, Warner, Head, Mitchell Marsh, Smith, Inglis, Maxwell, Green, Cummins, Stark, Zampa and Hazelwood. So that's Australia. Let's talk about the Netherlands. Their next game is on the 28th of October, and that will be on Saturday. That's against Bangladesh, and that will be in Kolkata in Eden Gardens. So the first time Eden Gardens has been featured in this World Cup. The Netherlands, it was a tough loss against Australia here, obviously. They've got to bounce back. They've played some good cricket in this World Cup at times. You know, they had a brilliant win over South Africa. They've shown glimpses of their best. Bangladesh themselves, coming off a very heavy loss against South Africa. They're not playing good cricket either in this World Cup, Bangladesh. So it's an opportunity for the Netherlands to really win this game against Bangladesh. I think they've got a good chance. Just need to make sure that their batting, especially their top order, scores runs. If they can do that, post a good total, and if their bowlers can execute, I think they're a good chance of winning. So going into that game against Bangladesh, the Dutch, I think they should be feeling confident that they should be able to put in a good performance nonetheless. In terms of their 11 for that game against Bangladesh, their potential 11, I think they'll probably keep the same 11 as they had here for Australia. So Singh, O'Dowd, Ackerman, Engelbrecht, De Leader, Edwards, Nitteramaru, Van Beek, Van der Merwe, Dutt, and Van Meekrum. My final thoughts on this match between Australia and the Netherlands. It was a pretty good victory by Australia, winning 3 games in a row against Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and now the Netherlands. They're starting to turn things around, which is good to see on their point of view. Things are starting to click. They're not quite at their best, 100% not quite there yet, but they're getting close. With each game that they win and play, you can see the improvement every game. So they're starting to get things together. Good to see Maxwell, Warner and Smith, Labuschagne in the runs. The bowlers starting to get some form and taking wickets and looking potent. So things are just starting to click for Australia, and they're going to be very hard to beat. They're on a bit of a run now, and you know they've got an important game against New Zealand, but as I mentioned earlier, they have a good record against New Zealand in ODIs and especially in World Cups. So they're well on track to qualify for the semi-finals at this stage, Australia. They look pretty good, they look pretty threatening, and they're starting to come back to their best, which is good for them. For the Netherlands, it was a record-breaking defeat. Obviously, for all the records that have been broken, obviously the heaviest margin of defeat in Cricket World Cup history, also the second highest in ODIs overall. A bit of a tough game for them, tough day. But, you know, they've done good things in this World Cup. You know, as I mentioned, they had a good win against South Africa early on. They've shown their best at times in this World Cup. So they'll learn a lot from this game against Australia, and it will put them in good stead going forward, the Dutch. It's a good learning experience, and hopefully they can build on this and develop from this experience. But it was an opportunity for them to play against Australia. They don't play Australia very often, as we know. So good for their players to test their skills and abilities up against a world-class side in Australia. So it wasn't to be today for the Dutch, but they can take plenty of learnings from this game. Thanks everyone for listening to today's episode of the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. Stay tuned for more ICC Cricket World Cup 2023 episodes and live streams on the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. If you're watching or listening to this episode of the podcast on our YouTube channel, let us know your thoughts on this match between Australia and the Netherlands in the comments. We would love to hear what you have to say. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.